I have, dude, I have.
You've got one client that matters.
No.
And welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard A. the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Howdy.
It is Monday, August 29th, 2022. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Latest video is a review of Ruins Magus, a VR action game. Go check it out. Working on a video about Into the Radius right now. I finished Into the Radius today. So,
You get out of the radius at all?
You'd think that was a simple question, but it is not. Completed Into the Radius today. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. And this is going to make me sound pretentious, but
Probably.
but the most frustrating part of writing for me is the beginning, because I have all these thoughts. And it's like if you got a Lego set and the first thing you do is, or like, imagine buying a Lego set and all the parts, they're not in plastic bags.
Lego set?
A big one.
Okay.
A complicated one.
Fine.
And you have to just dump it on the table, and that's how you figure out how to build it. That's kind of the process.
So they're not in the numbered bag. With the
No, it's just they're loose in the box, and you dump it on the table, and that's where.
Sounds like a challenge.
That's where you have to. But anyway.
There's a organizational process, specifically used in Lego building, that involves doing that.
Knolling.
Yes.
Yeah, knolling. Yeah.
I love that shit.
The only reason I know that is because of what we do in the shadows. But anyway, it's a frustrating process for me. But Into the Radius is really ambitious. It has some really cool ideas. It takes some ideas and does them extremely well. So Into the Radius is, it's a survival horror game, super atmospheric, super immersive. You take jobs, you go into a radius, which is really similar to like a stalker, what have you. You complete a mission and you leave. The way the game is structured is that the map is split into these sections, which are circles, and it's a circle of fog, and then that's the section of the map. So if you want to travel between these circles, you have to go to a specific exit, and in this exit, it'll lead you to the next one.
Okay.
So to get back to the main base where it's safe, you have to either follow the connection from circle to circle to circle, or there are a couple shortcuts that can really cut down on time. So you can't just, if you're in the middle of one of these maps, you can't just leave, right? You have to get to the edge of the circle, find the exit, which the exits are always the same. And then you take that exit, walk into the fog, and you appear at the main base. But
realistically, because there's multiple circles, the game should be into the radii.
Yes. Sure.
I'm sorry.
That was fine.
Radii-Asian.
Hey, there we go.
I was gonna say, so the way that the game kind of works out is your state depreciates as you go into the radius, because you can buy all the stuff that you need at your main base. And as you go into the radius, you can stay there as long as you want, but you'll run out of ammo, you'll run out of food, you'll take damage, and you can get health back with health injector needle things, but you have to find them or buy them. As your character gets hungry, hunger doesn't take away from health, but it eats away at your stamina. So if your hunger meter and your stamina bar are like a tug of war, right? So if if hunger takes over all of your stamina, you can't sprint. And that's not good, because sprinting is good when you want to try and evade enemies and stuff like that. But it's not necessarily it's not going to kill you if you're hungry, but it does make the game harder. But the point I was trying to make is you go out into the radius and you have to do missions. You can stay there as long as you want, but eventually you have to go back, because even if you're scavenging and you can find food and health, you're not going to be able to find enough to hold yourself over forever. Okay. Then the other thing is in the radius, there's a tide, which is very similar to like Breath of the Wild and I'm sure other games, where you can go into a zone, you take out all the enemies there, they don't respawn. So there's a timer. It's like every 4 days on the normal setting, the tide comes and resets everything. So if you found a gun in a box, there's something else in that box now. If you found an enemy in a building and you took them out, that enemy respawns. Certain quests certain missions have to be completed before the tide, because when the tide goes over the radius, it resets where those things are. So the mission is canceled because those things disappeared and relocated somewhere else. So you kind of have to judge for yourself, like, you know, if you want to take a mission that goes really deep into the radius, it's like, okay, I'm gonna need, you know, food. I'm gonna want to get up early in the morning so that I have time to run out there. It gets really dark at night, like pitch black. Like, it's not video game night where it's almost day, just, you know, with a color filter.
Yeah.
It's pitch black. So, and you have flashlights and stuff, but I mean, even then, it's harder to figure out where you're going. Enemies, the flashlights that you have, enemies can shoot you from outside of your flashlights, like
range,
right? So, I don't think there's really any way to make night like viable. You may be able to sneak around better, but it gets super dark. The previous versions of the game were not like this. Night got dark, but it was like a hazy orange, so you could still kind of see. But in the latest version of the game, it just gets pitch black. So that makes nighttime more difficult. And what makes that more difficult is you don't want to you don't want to go around at night, which means you want to find a place to sleep. There are safe houses in the radius where you can sleep. But sleeping for however long it is dark, which is like 8 hours, that's 8 hours that the tide gets closer. And if you are in the zone when the tide takes over, you get transported to a random spot in the map. And all the enemies that you've killed regenerate. And of course, all the ammo that you used to kill them, you don't get that back. So now you're at net loss. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of resource management, a lot of inventory, and also, like a lot of games like Breath of the Wild, you can grind and you can find there's things called artifacts, which are like, you know, anomalies in the zone that are mysteries, and you find them in anomaly fields, which are these. It's weird. They're like crystals that disappear and then reappear, and you can walk through them, but it gives you damage. There's another one that's like a bubble, and a bubble appears for a second, like a kind of like an explosion, and it disappears and it comes back. And if you walk into that, it tosses you out the way you came and it damages you. So there are these anomalies that are sort of, they're not hostile beings, they're just natural phenomenon you have to watch out for. Something that's also in Stalker and sort of that kind of that genre. But so anyway, if you go into these anomaly fields, you can find artifacts, and you can sell these artifacts. The game has lots of different gear, lots of different weapons, some of it really expensive. You have to buy ammo, and the ammo can get really expensive. There's different types of ammo. So if you're buying so I have an AKM that I use with my character. The AKM uses a 7.6239 ammo, I think. And there's 3 different types of 7.6239 ammo: Full Metal Jacket, Armor Piercing, and one other one. And they all do. You can kill enemies with all of them. Okay. But Armor Piercing takes care of enemies that have armor. Yeah. Full Metal Jacket is good for any enemy that doesn't have armor, stuff like that.
So I always wonder, because I haven't played many games that put the emphasis on purchasing ammo.
Sure.
Like Metro or like Stalker. I think Stalker does that as well.
I don't remember.
Is the like enemy damage to what weapon you have, like, does it make that not necessarily moot, but like, you know, a normal in real life, a bullet or two will take someone down. Like, is that the case in here, or are you like in constant worry of
it depends on the enemy.
Ammo? Yeah.
Certain enemies. So there's the spidery enemies that I've talked about that jump in the air and
You just slap those away, though.
2 shots will take those guys out.
That's too much.
So two
too
shots, and you can hear them. The good thing is they're really fast, but they're really loud. They're the loudest enemy. You can hear them from ways away. So you're kind of always ready for them. And you can take them out with 2 shots. Armor piercing does less damage, but it pierces armor, right? So it's kind of a weird thing, because armor piercing, you think, oh, must be stronger. And it is technically stronger, but it's not doing the same kind of damage. It's the same thing with like tanks that have armor piercing rounds and stuff like that. But you do have to, you buy a box of bullets, and then you press, I have on my index controllers, you pick it up with the grip, you press the trigger button, a bullet drops out, you pick up that bullet, you put it in the magazine. You can also hold the magazine up to the box and it automatically fills. But what this means is if I have a weapon and I have full metal jacket and armor piercing, I have to make sure that I'm loading and I'm being attacked by an enemy with armor. I have to make sure, okay, I'm loading my armor piercing magazine into the rifle. You can hold B, and B is like an info screen, and it'll tell you what you have loaded in your gun, so you don't have to like physically look at the bullets, even though the bullets do have little differences on them. But so, if I see an enemy coming at me, I can just grab my gun, hold B, armor piercing, 8 of 13, great. So you don't have to like take out the mag and look. So it's a lot of stuff like that, which sounds really tedious. I actually love it because it's really granular. And there's, at the beginning of Metro, there's this part at the beginning of the first Metro game where you get a revolver and the mutants are attacking the Metro system. And the badasses in Metro are the Rangers, right? And the Rangers have these kick-ass gas masks. They have these sick AKs with lasers and suppressor. They look like modern day special forces, and you're like a dinky like dude with a revolver, and they look like badasses. And the great thing about Metro is, as the game goes on, it's like, okay, you get a gun, a better gun. Now that better gun has a laser on it, and then 15 hours in, you've got a nice gun with a laser and a suppressor, and so it's like you kind of evolve into that guy that knows how to take on enemies and also has a much better weapon, right? And that's how Into the Radius does things. You start off, you don't have a lot of money. You can find ammo and guns, but you have to repair them, or you may not find a lot of ammo for them. But like toward the end of my game, I had a pistol with a laser and a suppressor on it. I have a sniper rifle. It's got a suppressor and a scope on it. And I have an AK with a suppressor and a dot sight and a grenade launcher on it. Mm-hmm. So I've got like all this gear that I can use, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. And it's all up to you. I know I'm going on about, I didn't plan on talking about this whole bunch, but it's all up to you.
Because I didn't play anything this week.
I'm sorry. This became Into the Radius hour out of nowhere. It's interesting because this is a point I was trying to make earlier with like Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild, you walk out, you can go straight to Ganon and be like, yo, and you can attack Ganon. And you do have to complete missions to unlock better gear in Into the Radius. But if you want to go into the Radius and explore right off the bat, start collecting stuff, you can get a ton of money, you can grind, and you can get that better weapon
immediately if you want.
3 hours into the game, if you go around and get a lot of stuff, right? So progression is tied. There's that organic progression that is sort of tied to how does the player go about exploring. Or are you somebody that's just going to do one mission at a time, and you'll progress maybe a little bit slower, but it may be a little bit easier because you're not tossing yourself out into the wild. So it's open like that, and I think there are a ton of people who play. They go out, with a pistol, and they're fine just exploring, and they come back with a ton of stuff. And there were times that I did that. When you have something, when you're carrying something in your hands, you have a backpack, a pocket, and you can put different stuff on your person. But if you're carrying something in your hands and you walk into the fog, you still have it with you when you exit the fog, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I have been in situations where I found a couple rifles or guns that I wanted to take with me back to base, but like my backpack, you can't put guns in your backpack, but you have a few slots for guns. But those slots were full, so I physically just picked them up and walked into the fog, and I exited the fog like I just came back from like shopping or something, because I had like 2 guns and all the stuff in my backpack. And so you can scavenge and collect a bunch of stuff like that, and so that's a lot of fun. I think one of the things that makes Into the Radius difficult to talk about is that its difficulty is really malleable, because you can change a lot about it. You can change whether or not you see yourself on the map. So the game becomes way easier if you can see yourself on the map, because at first it's just like, it's an open world game. Well, mini open worlds, whatever.
Open area.
So you take your map, and if you shut off it shows you where you are. You have to guide by landmarks, roads. There's a big black hole looking thing that is in the middle of the radius, and no matter where you are, you can always see it in the sky, and your map shows you a red arrow pointing to where that black hole thing is relative to the map you have, right? So you can sort of align yourself with it and figure out, okay, I need to go left, right, whatever. But like for me, I loved having to find my way by landmarks and stuff like that. That it gets really intense that way, and it's great. You complete an objective, you reload, you take stock on all your inventory, and then it's just a minute where you have your map out, and I'm like pointing, okay, there's that rail yard over there. There's the road curves, and then after it curves, I'm gonna have to go right. So all that I think is really fun. But you can change way more than that. You can change how much damage enemies do, how much damage they can take, how many enemies there are, how often the tide comes. So you can change the experience around a lot, and I think a lot of people might, because I think the game's weakness is its combat. Because it just doesn't feel great. Into the Radius is really good when it's 1 or 2 enemies and the enemies don't have guns. And if the enemies do have guns, it's like medium to long range engagements that are fun. When it's up close, there's just the way the AI acts just doesn't. The AI is super accurate.
Right.
They have, Counter-Strike aimbot. So like if you are in their periphery, there isn't an animation where it's like, I spotted the player. Whoa, yeah. Now I'm going to take a second or two to react. You're
already getting shot.
Instant, it's instant, just player, boom, and you're taking shots. And so that makes close quarters combat just not fun, because you're constantly being shot at. They'll spot you through like a break in a wall, and you're just getting shot at.
That's dumb, yeah.
And so it's just not fun. But if you make combat easier by tweaking that difficulty a bit, it becomes better. And there are some moments where they just toss tons of bad guys at you, and it's just like, good God, there are so many dudes you have to shoot through, and it's not great. And the controls also in Into the Radius are they're not I'm not sure how to describe them. They're kind of
intuitive.
Not necessarily unintuitive, they're just not good. I don't know how to, like in Onward, right? If I can have targets in front of me, I can pull out my pistol without looking down at my side. I can pull out my pistol, I can cycle through the targets. So shot, hit, shot, hit, shot, hit, shot, hit, and go like that, right? And then as soon as the mag is empty, I can unload the mag and, not looking at my person, grab another mag, put it into the pistol, reload, and go right back. And I can do that really fast. And in VR, it makes me look like I'm a weapons expert. In real life, I can't do that. But in VR, I look like
someone hasn't tried.
I was about to say, okay, John Wayne.
No. In VR, I mean, because Onward has really smooth controls, and that's the idea. And Into the Radius is not like that. Like, I can't seem to get. I've played 30 hours now, and there are still times where I see an enemy, I go to pull out my pistol, and it's just like, where's my goddamn? And I have to look down.
Oh, is it like
physically grab my pistol?
It's at a like specific position.
It's really specific and really awkward. And there's a ton of things like that. So imagine 50 little tiny things like that happening every few seconds over the course of 30 hours, right? That can really sort of grind your experience.
Yeah, stopgaps.
As exposed to something like Half-Life, and I understand Half-Life Alyx is a different game, but it worked. You pull the mag, every time you go to pull a mag,
just works.
It appears, right?
It just
every
works.
time you get a weapon, it appears. You don't have to worry about it too much. In Half-Life Alyx, you have wrist pocket things, right, where you can store grenades. You have the same thing Into the Radius, but it's really imprecise, and that's frustrating because if you drop something into the radius, it could just disappear. Not necessarily despawn, but like the probe sack, you throw bullets, and if you don't know if there's an anomaly in front of you, you throw it. You throw a bullet, it appears, just like the movie Stalker, and just like Stalker the video game. So you can do the same thing in Into the Radius. This probe sack is camouflaged the same color as the ground. So let's say you go to an anomaly field and they're like, I'm gonna get through this anomaly field, which are mazes. So you take your probe sack out, you toss, and you kind of working your way through, making sure you're not running. You get to the middle, you're like, great. You go to drop your sack onto your wrist because there's a little wrist, but if you don't get it just right, it misses. But the game is also really loud. So you go to your wrist, you drop it, it hits the ground, but because the game is so loud, you don't hear it hit the ground, so you don't know that you just left your sack on the ground, your probe sack, on the ground. And then you go and you leave, and an hour later, you're like, I need my probe sack. Oh shit, where'd it go? It's gone now, because you don't know where you dropped it, and even if you did know the vicinity, it's the same color as the ground, so good luck finding it. So there's like tiny things like that, it just doesn't need to be, like, it doesn't need to be that difficult to, and maybe I don't think it's a user error thing, because I don't have that, like,
Well, I mean, already, if you're telling me that an important item that you have is the same color as the ground, that does sound like an issue. Like,
yeah. And like, I installed Onward, I went into Onward, and I felt like Revolver Ocelot. I was just like, this gun,
damn,
the weight.
You went and re-downloaded 20 plus gigs just to like prove point.
Like, I know I'm not just bad at grabbing things. I know the index controllers are weird, but I know it's not that. I ran through the target practice thing. I looked
My
like
fine motor skills are good.
I looked like a Navy SEAL with my 9mm and a silencer, and I was like, doing all great stuff. And then I went back into the Radius, and it's like, shit, what the, and like trying to figure out where to. So it's just, the controls are just bad. So there's sorry, I just talked for 20 minutes. I apologize. That's what I meant about the Legos, the knolling.
Oh, right. I forgot. You started out with an analogy about Legos. And we never came back around to that. So.
Baldur's Gate's good too. So that's what I have to say about Baldur's Gate.
Real quick question about
the
Radius. Sorry to continue going on.
No, I'll take questions. This is a press conference now. What can you tell us about the... Sorry.
Off the top of your head, do you know how long the day-night cycle is?
So it's 4 days and a minute. So I was watching the clock go by the other day, and it seemed like a minute was a second. So that means every hour is 60... Every hour is a minute. So it's 24 times 3.
Okay.
So that would be, or 24 times 4. So hour and a half is the tide cycle, give or take a 10 or so minutes. I don't know. I'm not doing it off the top of my head.
Kind of fast.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. Like hour and a half in real lifetime.
In real lifetime.
Okay, I guess
that's
not that fast.
And it's not that bad. And once you figure out the routes, you don't have to use your map because you learn the maps. So it's like, where you are. You don't have to constantly. And then you get routes that you like. So in the game, just like in like Death Stranding, there are routes that it's like, okay, I know if I follow this trail, I go to this side. Even when the tide comes, I know which enemies, because similar enemies always appear in same spots.
Okay.
So even once the tide hits, I kind of know what's going to be over here, so I can follow the trail, get to the thing. So your treks into the Radius become much faster. You learn where the shortcuts are. That cuts down time a lot. So I really didn't feel like the tide was that big of a deal, but it is a little bit of a tactical decision because you will have times where it's like, it's only one day until the tide. Do I want to take this mission? Do I want to take that risk that I'm going to be out there? So there's that kind of thing. But Yeah, I would say about an hour and a half on the normal setting.
See, that's interesting because you keep comparing it to the Blood Moons in Breath of the Wild. Those are almost every 3 hours of continuous play.
Oh, really?
Or 7 in-game days.
Well, I guess length of time isn't really the point. It's just what it does effectively. It respawns all the enemies, the stuff, the loot that you find. There's new loot. It may not be as good, maybe better, but there's new stuff, and it resets some of the objectives. So it's similar in that regard, not necessarily the length of time between each one. Yeah. But yeah, if you're fine with that kind of stuff, I would recommend it. But I don't know. There were some times I got really frustrated with it. Oh man, there's one thing Into the Radius. So VR right now is crazy because no developer knows how to do anything. It's all people are inventing stuff on the fly, right? It's like, how do you crouch? Let the player crouch on their own. Have a crouch button. How about you press the right stick down to crouch? Because you don't have to press it down because you're not looking up with your thumb. You're looking up with your head. So there's a billion different ways, right? So Into the Radius, when you aim down a scope, it gives the weapon, when your weapon has a scope on it, you equip your weapon. It gives your weapon a really, like, what's the term I'm looking for? Molasses feeling smoothness to it that I hate. Oh, I hate so much. So imagine you're moving like a stick through water. There's like a resistance there.
Right. Okay.
It's doing that to aid you. And as far as I can tell, you cannot turn this setting off. And it drives me nuts because it's doing that to aid you, but it hinders you more than it aids you. I had a x4 scope for my AK, and I ended up just taking that thing off because it's like, I may aim with my AK and turn it to the side to hit something at short range because you can do that in VR. But with that scope there, the weapon just kind of moves differently and it bothers me, and it doesn't need to be like that. And I know I'm going to bring up Onward again, but in Onward, it's like you put a 12-time scope, have fun. It's going to move the same as every other thing. So if you put a 12-time scope on your gun, you just got to be more careful with it. It's not there's not going to be a player aid there. And I wouldn't be as upset with it if there was an option to turn it off and on. But there isn't. So it's just something you have to put up with. And I just really dislike it.
I don't think I've ever played a VR game that has a good like scope mechanic for like sniper rifles or I don't know what that is. Never heard of it.
I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm obnoxious. I know. No, but I know. Onward is one. You know what one I liked? It was simplistic and a little brute force, but Resident Evil.
Nope.
Because it just
I didn't like that one.
You didn't like it?
No,
I thought it was fine because it just said we're gonna turn your whole screen into the scope, and I was like, oh, okay with this. You didn't like it though.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
It never activated correctly how I wanted it to.
Oh, okay. I could see that. Yeah. And you did have to like. It felt like you were like pulling like a plunger off of your face to get it off.
Yeah. but also, I think that just could be from me not liking to. I don't use rifles in Resident Evil.
Oh, yeah. It is kind of a special weapon.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I'm just like, this pistol's going to take care of me the entire game. And I'm here to like, shoot and tyrant. Like,
right.
Okay, cowboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so I'll have to organize all that into a script.
Do some nulling.
What are you talking about? You just did.
Do some word nulling.
Get all your thes together.
I think it's called nulling. I hope nulling isn't something else that I saw somewhere else that's like a horrible fan fiction concept or something disgusting.
Nulling.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that's the thing with the lingus.
It's the new movie by A24.
No, it is nulling.
Okay, thank goodness. Richard, have you played games?
Yeah, I've been playing Into the Radius.
And all our listeners
And I disagree with everything you've said.
And I'm going to tell you what. So yes, I have been playing, but it's. I'm not going to dwell too long about it.
You can take as long as you want. I'm sorry.
Genshin Impact 3.0 came out, and so 3.0 here is the biggest update that they've had in I think over a half year, almost a year. But this update added a whole new area to the game, or a whole new nation. We'll say that because I mentioned before that Genshin Impact's nations or areas are designed off of real world places. So the first area, Mondstadt, is based off of Germany. Second one, Liyue, is based off China. Inazuma is based off Japan. And then the new one, Sumeru, is based off the Middle East. It's very vague. So it's Middle East, maybe Northern Africa, probably. Because so the first area here is Sumeru, and it is just complete luscious, like greenery, like forest area. Mushrooms all over the place. I think, what was it? Real place, Sumeria, right? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, obviously,
I don't know
but
where it's at.
Sumeria?
Yeah, where was it at, Connor?
Between the Tigris and Euphrates.
There you go.
the ancient civilization, right?
Yeah. Mesopotamia.
Cradle of civilization.
Yeah. So and each nation has their own like thing. Like Mondstadt is the nation of freedom. Liyue is the commerce. And
Please tell me this one is agriculture.
it's knowledge, actually. Probably, but this I think that they kind of MiHoYo, the guys who make Genshin Impact, I think they kind of I don't want to use the phrase hit their stride, but they kind of learned how to balance traversal, particularly of the characters, and what they put into the new area that you're kind of running around in. Because with Mondstadt, it's very, very flat, very basic, this is an open world like game with like trees sprinkled in and like, you know, a couple towns and stuff like that. And Liyue is very nice. It's very beautiful. The architecture is great, but it's very mountainous. And so you spend a lot of your time climbing mountains, and you have like a stamina bar. And so it's like, you're kind of just like, I got to get to this before my stamina runs out. So like, it's a constant like feeling of that. There are nice like places in the, not caverns, but I don't want to call them crevasses either, but just, you know, in the canyons.
Okay.
That like you can traverse in and are nice, but everything you want to see is kind of like in places.
Nooks and crannies.
Yeah. And Inazuma is really great, very unique. However, there's a lot of environmental dangers. So that area is, the story is, the god of that area is very angry at the moment. And so there's just consistent lightning all over the place. So as you're trying to traverse it, it's just like, you know, the static from the lightning is afflicting you. So it's like you'll keep getting hit by lightning or whatever. So it's just kind of annoying. And so in this one, there are lots of ways to traverse areas. There are like these little mushrooms that you can bounce on and they'll like launch you up. Or there are little like four-leaf clovers hanging in midair that you can kind of lasso onto, and they'll kind of shoot you in directions that you need to go.
Oh, okay.
And it's made traversal not only a lot faster, but very fun as well. And I think we're getting more, not that there hasn't been story, but feels like we're kind of at a halfway point and there are bigger things being like revealed, because there are these mechanical enemies that you fight that you kind of learn may have been like in a ancient civilization, like originally like farming equipment and whatnot, but they kind of like turn them into weapons. And so now they're kind of autonomous weapons that will attack you if you like kind of go by. But there's an area where like when you just kind of go over this mountain ridge, it's just the entire mountain. There's just one big machine that's like kind of like dead, like in like
that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And it's very neat. And when you pop up the menu, you can actually see his like little outline on it. And it's very cool. But there's implications there of like what happened to like, there was a big war that was going on, because they always talk about a war between the gods and whatever was going on down on the ground. But it's very cool so far. And they also do kind of like, I don't want to say like real world things, but of course it's very apt considering stuff that's going on with the internet. But like the city is the city of knowledge, but when you get there, they give you a little like, oh, here's a little device and you can access anything in the knowledge base. Just ask it. And it's like, yeah, well, where's the god of this place? We want to go talk to her. And it's like, no, we're not going to tell you any of that. Like specific pieces of knowledge are locked off to people, even though they're like, you can access anything. And it's just very like, oh, something is up here because they're not letting us look at this, and they're purposefully hiding very obvious things that people want to know about. So I've scratched the surface on that, but this is just kind of the first part of it. And so we have this whole new area that's been added to the map that is forest and greenery. And then the next part, which I think is 3.1, is going to be adding a whole new area after that, which will be just complete desert, probably representing like the Northern Africa like area.
Okay.
So it's very cool so far, and it's very, very impressive what they've done and how they've grown since 1.0. So.
Oh, okay, cool. Man, every time I hear about Genshin Impact, I feel like maybe I should give it a try. No idea if I'd like it, but it seems like
I got into it, and I think we talked about this, but I got into it because originally it was just kind of a no consequence type game. Like I didn't have to take it seriously. I jumped in a little bit, something to do, just kind of pass the time. Kind of gotten really, really involved in a lot of the characters, their stories, how they like intertwine with other people, and now I really enjoy it. And it is actually. We talk about the gacha mechanics a lot and stuff, and sure, it still is predatory to an extent, but the characters you get for free you can play the entire game just with them, and you won't have any issues. Like there's no wall to lock you off from actually doing anything important. You can play the game start to finish for the most part just by itself. But if you want to do like really intense, not necessarily end game, but just like very competitive things, like they call them domains, but they're like challenges and stuff like that. That's when you'll probably want to like start, how do I build this team? What stats do I need? This and that, and then have to get like specific things to upgrade them. But it is very cool, and I'm very impressed, and I want to play more, so much more.
Awesome, cool. Is there?
That's it. No, that's it.
No? Okay.
Let's move on.
Let's hit that ad.
Yep.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
Bandai Namco Europe's COO has talked about acquisitions. In an interview with GameIndustry.biz, Arnaud Moller spoke about the recent string of acquisitions across the gaming industry. He said, quote, when we invest in IP creation... Wait, hold on. I should have when we invest in IP creation, when we invest in marketing for these IPs. Okay, so there was sorry, that came up weird.
Preposition, I think so. Yes.
Yeah. We also have to keep in mind that we have to get some sort of security towards the future of the studio that develops this IP. If the IP doesn't belong to us, the spread of acquisition that we're seeing is affecting some of the smaller publishers in their capacity to access the best studios in the world. But we at Bandai Namco have the financial means to secure these partnerships. We work on a number of measures to secure those partnerships. You're talking first option rights, IP ownerships, and minority stakes in those studios. So there are ways to secure the relationships.
This story is going to go, I think, partially in hand with what we're going to talk about in a few minutes, with Phil Spencer dropping some... Whoa! I know he's spicy. That Phil Spencer, spicy, dropping some spicy rhymes about exclusivity in a little bit. But there are some things here that I think are interesting on its own. Because I would love to hear about. Because
this came up because Supermassive being acquired by someone else, right?
I don't remember.
I was reading the article, and I think it's Supermassive who makes the.
Is it Supermassive Damage, or is there?
No, it's just Supermassive games, but they make the Dark Pictures anthology games for Bandai Namco.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
right. And so they've been acquired by somebody, and so they're kind of like questioning Bandai Namco on how this affects them making those games for Bandai Namco.
Yeah, I think so. I hate myself. You guys hate me. Whatever. But this reminds me of like free agency in sports, because what he's talking about is literally the same thing. It's like you sign a guy to a contract, and you have that security that, hey, and you put a no trade clause, or you can't go somewhere else, And it's kind of the same thing as you sign a company, you're gonna make this game for us for the next 5 years, whatever. You can't be acquired, you can't back out, whatever. Now, I think that's something that we probably all would have guessed that existed, but it's more important now because of this string of acquisitions and the string of acquisitions that has been extremely lucrative. It's not like there's little tiny acquisitions.
Right.
There's these huge, right, like multi-billion-dollar acquisitions from Bungie, Activision Blizzard, Bethesda, right? We can go on and on. So the market, is paying high, right? It's a buyer's market at this point.
Buy.
Yeah, when we're talking about video game developers and stuff like that. But we're hearing about this from Bandai Namco, who has maybe the best-selling game this year with
Elden Ring.
With Elden Ring. I don't know off the top of my head if it is, but it's going to be one of them. So they have financial power, right? But like, what about Raw Fury or Focus Home Interactive, which we'll talk about in a little bit, or New World Interactive, or name any other smaller publisher or smaller developer? Like, how is this world of acquisitions changing the way that they're doing business? And that's if at all. Because I think if I am a smaller publisher, I guess if I'm a smaller publisher, what do I do to secure those things? Or do I really have to worry about it, right? Like, does Devolver Digital really have to worry about, maybe Devolver Digital does.
No, I don't think they do.
Like, you don't think they have to worry about like Microsoft sweeping in and taking a bunch of the developers that they
probably, but I also don't think so. Because I'm thinking about this now and especially
with like how a lot of these smaller publishers, Xbox Game Pass is a great way to get your game out there. And if Microsoft is like, hey, your game's doing well on our service, why don't we just buy that developer?
Right. That makes sense too. It also is, I think it's different for different sized studios. But also I think there comes, when you sign a contract, when you don't own a company and sign a contract, I think you have a better return on investment, because it's very possible that game could come a hit. We're talking about Devolver Digital right now, so we'll go with Cult of the Lamb that just released.
Yeah.
That, is seemingly getting good sales, good reviews. So that is a hit, and that is a hit that would not only bring money to Devolver, but bring money to developer. Now let's go and think about kind of the AAA side. I'm going to like kind of stress AAA side because we'll talk about Volition right now. Volition is a big name studio that has created the Saints Row franchises, and they've done a lot. Newest Saints Row came out, which is not getting great reviews, and it's not getting very good word of mouth either.
Sure, yeah.
And then even Bethesda. Even if you are a big studio like BioWare or Volition or maybe even Naughty Dog, who knows? You can't always have a hit that's going to sell millions and millions and millions. Elden Ring, I think, is an outlier, like right place, right time. Who knows if like the next game that they release will even get to the point that Elden Ring did. Signing contracts for particular like games may be a better way to go about it than just owning a studio.
That makes a lot of sense.
That all of those examples was just to lead to that statement.
Yeah,
so.
and I also think the economics, because does I mean, let's say Cult of the Lamb. How big of a deal is Cult of the Lamb to Microsoft? Is it a big enough deal if that's the kind of thing they want to spend money on acquiring and bringing in-house?
It's a big enough deal that it's not on Game Pass.
Yeah, but is it a big enough? So it's in a sweet spot or something? Because that's the question that I would ask is like, or that I would have is it a big enough deal that they are willing to spend money on it to acquire it, considering that the market is or I guess it's a seller's. I don't know economics. If you're buying stuff, it's expensive, so it's a seller's market there. Considering that it's a seller's market, and that kind of leads into the other thing that I thought of is that maybe this partially explains, like the Square Enix thing, because if you do have a contract with a developer or whatever, and things aren't just working out or just aren't working out, maybe you do cut your losses and decide we're going to sell this at a discount because the price of trying to figure out how to get it to work is going to be more expensive than just selling it at this discount, right?
Mhm.
So on our end, it's a depreciating asset. So we're gonna sell it at a price that people are gonna scoff at, like Square Enix's Western Studios. But if we tried to manage it and fix it, we think we're just gonna lose more money on it. I think maybe that, and that's just total speculation on my part, because I had not thought about all the money and the marketing that it takes place to not only like have studios, but then utilize them.
Yeah.
All right. Get them making games, get the marketing out there, all that jazz. And you have security on that. And so, if you're already in a hole, at what point is it, you know what, let's just sell the guy off because it's just going to be too expensive to work on. And I think maybe we could see more of that.
Yeah.
And damn it, this is kind of similar, but Ubisoft's going to be next.
Who?
Ubisoft is going to have to be next.
Yeah, me and Ubisoft don't talk no more.
I don't blame you. Are we ready to move on? I'm going to say you guys said yes.
Yes.
Phil Spencer says there will be fewer exclusives in the future. This is in an interview with Emily Chang and Dina Bass from Bloomberg. Talked about a lot, including Activision Blizzard's allegations and unions. The discussion also got around to exclusives, saying that games made for one device are something we're going to see less and less of. This quote is a little long, but I think it's important because there's a lot said here. Quote, maybe you happen in your household to buy an Xbox and I buy a PlayStation, and our kids want to play together and they can't because we bought the wrong piece of plastic to plug into our television. We really love to be able to bring more players and reducing friction, making people feel safe, secure when they're playing, allowing them to find their friends, play with their friends, regardless of what device. I think in the long run, that is good for this industry. And maybe in the short run, there are some people in some companies that don't love it. But I think as we get over the hump and see where this industry can continue to grow, it proves out to be true, end quote. I thought that was a spicy meet the ball.
That whole quote just very much gave me, there was a point before, it was towards the end of the 360 PS3 lifespan, before the PS4 came out, and it was just this constant talk from all these journalists about a one console future. And we pretty much thought it was PC, essentially. And now we look at the consoles now, they're slowly edging towards, specs that rival PCs, or just kind of, interchangeable compared to PCs. And it very much sounds like Spencer is is kind of aiming towards that in a bit, or not just aiming towards that, but kind of wanting to eliminate the need for creating hardware anymore, particularly for like just Microsoft or just in general. That is a very interesting quote, though.
So one is he calls consoles pieces of plastic, which I find, I don't know, as the head of Microsoft Gaming, you have these two consoles that are expensive you want people to buy, and you call these goddamn pieces.
Are you going to tell him he's wrong?
No, he's not wrong, but
grow up.
It's just that's not the PR savvy. That's Phil Spencer with a blazer on. His T-shirt is a
I'm just like you
t-shirt.
guys.
Yeah, I'm just like you. I play games all the time. Yeah, that's sort of that kind of thing.
I've seen him.
He actually, there was one time on stage at E3 where he like geeked out about a game, and I was like, that seems totally real. Like, I think this guy actually plays games. Like all the other execs, like Patrick Southerland, never touched a controller in his life. Don't want to hear it. Everybody else at Electronic Arts, same thing. Andrew Wilson, I don't think he knows what a video game is. He thinks he sells loot boxes. Anyway, back to the thing. So
he's a played game.
Yeah, I did.
He said, and in the short run, there's some people in some companies that don't love it. So he's talking about Sony there. because Sony was resistant to, or
sure.
PlayStation, whatever.
Yeah, he's talking about Sony. I'm sure he's talking about other people too, but
yeah.
yeah, we can definitely look at Sony.
Was resistant to crossplay, but also
because it's for the children.
yes,
You got to protect the children.
Jim Ryan. But also
He never played a video game.
that's probably true too. I think Microsoft has sort of forced the platform agnostic future into existence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in kind of the same way that I think maybe Epic was trying to make PC gaming, like storefronts on PC gaming, a more equitable, competitive market, like try and force it into existence. Epic did things that were unpopular and that I think were ridiculous, but in a similar way, I think Xbox is doing that too, is they're sort of forcing this platform agnostic future. They've made it a viable option for publishers to put their games out on Xbox Game Pass and stuff like that. And PlayStation has had to explore how do we compete on a similar level. And this is something we've talked about in the past few weeks. But, you know, they've said that they're going to look more at mobile, their mobile division. They're going to do more on PC. And they have a service that's similar to Xbox Game Pass now. So I think it's interesting that Spencer is acknowledging that Xbox kind of dragged the industry, sans Nintendo, into this realm. And now the industry is having to play catch up in a sense. And I wish we would, and that kind of feels candid to me. I'm sure there's some PR guardedness there, but I feel like that's pretty candid. But I wish we could get a similar candid quote from like a Jim Ryan at Sony, because they're a little bit more conservative when it comes to this. So I would love to know what their philosophy is.
I think Jim Ryan would straight up call Spencer an idiot.
You think so?
I don't know. Maybe. Maybe.
Just call him out like it's a WWE match.
Hell yeah.
I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime. But anyway, so and the other thing about this, so the exclusives are, I'm going to adjust my mic for a second there. I hope that didn't destroy your ears.
No.
Not your ears, the people that are listening.
Oh.
Okay, so are exclusives really dead? Like,
no.
Or
Sony won't let them die.
No,
Sony and
as
Nintendo
long as
both
Nintendo
went.
exists.
well, Nintendo doesn't count.
Yeah, because there's really two video game industries.
Nintendo doesn't make games; they make Nintendo.
There's really two video game industries. There's the video game industry, and then there's Nintendo.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing.
But no, I don't think everything will leave PlayStation eventually. I think some things will stay exclusively PlayStation titles.
How come nobody talks about the PC exclusives?
Well, I mean,
Nope, I win.
okay, well, hold on. You don't win. No.
I mean, he's got a
Nobody
point.
complains about that.
Well, because there isn't a head of PC gaming for PC. I mean, if anything, the closest thing
Gaben.
to that would be no, it's not Gaben.
Fine, John Romero,
Tim
whatever.
Sweeney. Tim Sweeney. It's Tim Sweeney.
Tim Sweeney, okay.
Mark probably thinks it's him. The Zuck probably. Oh,
It's Bill Gates.
That's Bill Gates. I don't know. Anyway, so okay, I understand what you're saying though.
PC.
It's Steve Ballmer, and only because of that video of him dancing when they released Windows 2000.
But I don't think anyone ever marketed a game as this is exclusive to PC gamers. It's like, oh, okay, so it's like there's a PC is a huge market that's super fluid.
That's really all the PC game showcase at E3 is. Just these are the PC games. You can only play them on PC.
That's a good point. But it's a different realm, right? It's a different realm. Nobody wakes up one day and goes, no casual gamers like, I want to get into video games. What do? I guess I need to get a motherboard, a CPU, a GPU, a monitor.
You heard it here first. Only real hardcore gamers are on PC.
but it's not as much of an investment.
Yeah.
You get a PS5, you put it on a shelf, you don't touch it for 5 years.
Yeah, you're done.
You get my graphics card has 45 minutes until I have to upgrade it. So it's like there's a little bit more of an investment there. So it takes a different market, not a hardcore versus casual market in the sense of like how good you are at video games or something. But anyway, sorry, I want to get back to the question at hand.
We're on the
Gentlemen,
topic of real gamers versus
hand.
console gamers.
Okay, so we all agree that exclusives aren't donezo.
No, not at all.
I think console exclusives, under the definition that like that they're marketed for that console, like up there, I have a Bloodborne cutout and it says only on PlayStation. That's going to mean something different, I think, in 5 years. It's going to mean the PlayStation ecosystem.
I don't even like that game.
I love Bloodborne. No, we're staying focused. And with Xbox, right?
Yeah.
I think you'll have like Game Pass exclusive games.
Yeah.
It's exclusive to our ecosystem.
Sure.
Something like that. I think that's a totally
no,
viable
yeah.
thing.
I don't think there will be an exclusive from Xbox side. There will still be PlayStation exclusives. But as far as if Spency Boy here is talking only about Xbox, I don't think there will be Xbox exclusive games.
Okay, so you think every game that's on. So you don't think? I think you're right. There won't be a future where the only way to play a game on PC is an Xbox game on PC is Game Pass.
Yeah,
it's like, and it's not on Steam. It's like,
well, and then even then he talked about was it him last week that talked about Call of Duty? No, the from Brazil. Yeah, he talked.
It was Microsoft Documents,
right?
Or
right.
Sony It was one of them was talking about. I think it was Microsoft Documents. So
Right.
it wasn't him specifically, but
So I mean, we still talked about it, and we don't know for sure because they haven't talked about it because they're not going to talk about it in years. But I still don't believe. I mean, I'm going to be totally wrong, but I still don't believe that Elder Scrolls 6 will be exclusive to Xbox. Like, I don't think they'll do that. Like, Starfield, yeah, sure, because I think they already talked about that.
Xbox and PC, yeah. No, I'm agreeing with you.
Right, but yeah, no, like if Sony releases a game, yeah, you're not going to get it anywhere but Sony.
They'll be more stringent with that.
Yes, yeah, unless it's like 2 years down the road, then they'll release it on PC.
And there's a brand new market for that stuff because God of War is
you're never going to get a God of War on Xbox. You might get it on PC eventually, but it's not going to enter the Xbox ecosystem. It's going to be PC. It's going to be through Steam or through some other third-party client.
I think for the past 3 weeks, we've always arrived at the same conclusion, and that's that gaming is on a spectrum now, and Microsoft is, free love is, it's Creed from The Office. Microsoft is like, I've made love with many women in the mud and the rain. A man could have slipped in. There'd be no way of knowing, right? That's Microsoft. Sony is in the middle where they've got their exclusives. They believe in their studios, their first party IPs.
They believe in their experiences.
They're willing to throw things out to a secondary market a few years down the road with PC. They have their game service that they're having fun with. But yeah, like if there's a Last of Us Part 3, it's going to come out and it's going to release. And the way to play it is you buy it on a PlayStation.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And for the first 2 years, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then maybe after that, it comes out on PC. Yep. Maybe it appears on the extra. Wait, do any of those tiers carry all the first party IPs or?
The newest tier carries damn near most of them.
Most of them?
Yeah.
I don't
Ghost
remember
of Tsushima, Returnal, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, like carries all of them.
I don't remember if they said one of these tiers will carry all their first party IPs.
No, they never said that.
Okay.
But because I don't think you can get Ratchet and Clank, and I don't think there's a couple that are.
I think the future
omissions.
of that is it's going to release, and then a year or two after its release, it'll enter their subscription model, and then a year or two after that, if they wanted to, it'll enter the PC market.
And that's what they did that's already what they've been doing with PlayStation Plus back in the day, right? It's like Last of Us I think like Last of Us Remastered or the Nathan Drake collection, like 3 or 4 years after it came out, for a month it was one of the free PlayStation Plus games. So it's like they'll put them out there that way.
Yes, they will.
And then obviously Nintendo is Fort Knox, SWAT team will break in if they think you're playing one of their games on an emulator, then they find out, oh no, you're using the Switch on an emulated version. We apologize for your kicked-in door and our SWAT team. So that's like Nintendo.
Here's a complimentary Mario hat.
Here's a complimentary Mario hat. Yes, of course.
kill your grandmother.
Whoa.
You know who would lead between Mario, Luigi, Wario, and Waluigi? Who's the squad leader in the
Absolutely Mario.
Really?
Absolutely Mario. I've
Kick an indoor SWAT team?
I've seen some videos, man.
I'm thinking it's well, I don't go to those websites, but
I don't either.
Luigi's definitely carrying a shield.
Luigi's headbutting people, dude.
Yeah.
okay.
Bashing
I was
them with a
thinking
shield.
I was thinking Waluigi. I don't know why, but
Waluigi wasn't even made by Nintendo.
do you want to get
Waluigi's
into this fight?
Yeah, I do.
Waluigi's on the
'Cause-
building next to them, overwatching with a sniper rifle.
I'll take that at least.
We'll move on.
I hate Waluigi. I'm sorry.
You do?
I hate Waluigi.
Waluigi is the strangest thing because
dumb.
it's such a random character, and yet people just, I mean, it just brings out some of the most. I mean, you could bring up the most hot topic button political issue of all time, and there are people that just don't give a shit. But you bring up Waluigi, and the weapons come out. It is the fists are curled and it's time to go. It's like if you talk, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. We're not talking about that crap anymore. A game developer says a publisher exploited them for diversity funding. So this is a story on. It was reported in a lot of places. Kotaku did some groundwork on it, and I've got a couple quotes here. So it's a couple more long quotes. But we'll get through it. Toge Productions and Mojiken Studios are Indonesian developers behind A Space for the Unbound. A Space for the Unbound was delayed indefinitely after the two developers terminated their publishing contract with PQube, which is a publisher based out of London. According to the two studios, they published this statement on Twitter. Quote, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in August 2020, PQube Games used our position and heritage as developers from Indonesia to obtain a diversity fund from a well-known console platform. PQube Games intentionally withheld information about the grant and used it as a leverage for their own commercial gain rather than paying the grant money to us. PQube Games hid the facts about the grant's award and added it as a recoupable minimum guarantee and then used it to negotiate the increase of their revenue share, end quote. In an email to Kotaku, now I want to point this out. So this is specifically an email to Kotaku. And I went to their Twitter and their website. They didn't seem to post this statement anywhere else, which I thought was weird. But anyway, so this is specifically in an email to Kotaku. PQube's PR team says the publisher has fulfilled all obligations toward the studio throughout delays and difficulties, adding, quote, this support has included offering significant further funding over and above grant funding to support development, porting, and marketing. Toge Productions has sought for some time to unilaterally enforce unreasonable revised terms to our agreement, and it is disappointing that, as a result of not achieving that, and despite PQube's significant efforts to accommodate this, they have sought to deal with the matter in this way. We will respond through the appropriate channels, end quote. Kotaku says PQube did not elaborate on the status of the diversity funds or what unreasonable revised terms means. I don't have a lot to say here but this does remind me of a few other stories that we've talked about in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
With like Aeon Must Die.
Yeah.
If you remember the Aeon Must Die thing.
That game came out too. I over my head.
Yeah. And if you go on its Steam page, people are still like talking about it. So, okay, you know what? It might be worth digging into this a little bit. Because if you go to Aeon Must Die's trailer, and you go to the top comment, the publisher posted an FAQ in the top comment. That's where they posted this statement about. So, and I don't remember Aeon Must Die, the whole story, but there was a studio working on a game. The publisher and the IP owner who was working at the development studio were overworking, according to the portion of I don't remember the developer's name. The developer of Aeon Must Die.
Yeah.
They sort of split in two, and the developer said they were overworked, and somebody the owner of the development company who owns the IP, like fired them or got rid of them, hired on new people, finished the game, and put the game out.
Yeah.
And so they were like, this isn't the game that we were working on because we were fired or we were let go, and there was lots of drama.
Right.
And I don't want to degrade the situation, but it was messy. It was messy. There was Google Docs with tons of stuff. And anyway, the publisher posts a FAQ in a YouTube comment section, which I think is a really weird way, a really weird place to post. So getting back around to this PQube situation is like, you have, it's an interesting time in video games because when Half-Life came out, how do you get your game out there in 1999? You got to contact a magazine.
Magazine.
You got to get you have to pay for like a cardboard box, and you're shipping units, right? Like a game like, I don't know, Ape Out, or name any kind of random small game, may not exist in 1999, or maybe way more difficult for it to exist because the business is just different. But now with the accessibility of Steam and Epic and all these publishers and all the ways and all the storefronts to put your game out there, it's more accessible, I think, but that doesn't mean it's any less difficult to make a successful game.
Right.
And now we've got this thing where it's like we have these small-time publishers who seem to be in the news a lot, and not for great reasons. Focus Home Interactive with The Sinking City and Aeon Must Die, and PQube, and then we had that story about the Switch port and the guy that owned the company that did all the Switch ports, and he made anti-Semitic jokes and racist jokes all the time, and it was really awkward. Way back in the day.
I think his name Callis. Wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that, right? Yeah. So you have all these like smaller players in an not unregulated, but like a Wild West type setting, and you don't know how much goes down, especially with smaller developers in like Indonesia or Eastern Europe or the Ukraine or Russia and stuff like that. So I guess what I'm trying to get around to is these stories are difficult to understand sometimes because they have to do with like contracts, and the developers and publishers are already small, so their capability of putting out statements is limited. Like the first thing I did was I looked at PQube, went to their Twitter, went to their website, like they must have just said nothing. And then you scroll down, it's like, oh, they emailed Kotaku, about this huge allegation that they used the diversity funding and held it as an asset to gain leverage. So yeah, I think that dichotomy is interesting. And I have a bias because I like developers more.
Yeah.
As dumb as that sounds, I have no reason to.
Why does it sound dumb?
I don't know, because it just sounds dumb. It's like, what? There's tons of good publishers out there,
Well,
Devolver Digital is a good
true.
publisher.
Okay,
I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they're not perfect. I'm sure all the publishers do things, and all companies suck.
Yeah, the point stands is that unfortunately, studios this small are going to get taken advantage of, and there's no good way of defending them. And we rely on trying to contact someone like PQube to, see what's up, but it already is proven they kind of just have the ability to be like, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so,
yeah,
it really sucks. It's a terrible situation to be in.
I'm sure there are parallels to like the music industry and stuff like that.
Exactly. I was
with agents and
record labels.
But even in those industries, it's like there are hubs like Hollywood, right? Like Los Angeles. Like there are hubs, there are cities where a lot of the business goes down. So at least there's like a physical presence. But with gaming, it's like, yeah, you have hubs like San Francisco, Montreal, but then you've got, Raven Software is in Wisconsin, and you've got studios in Texas. You've got studios in the UK. You've got studios like Eastern Europe. Like there are so many studios in like Ukraine making games. It's crazy. Like and they're all competing on the same platform, and that's one of the challenges of like unionization is okay, let's put all these studios, let's get them protected by a union. But you've got 16 different countries with 60 different labor laws, and you got to figure all that out. As opposed to something where it's like, if you are a British actress and you want to be in a big movie, you're going to have to go to Hollywood because that's going to be the big spot. You move to Hollywood, there's a union, you're working under U.S. labor law. I'm not an expert, but I imagine that's how it works, right? Or same thing with like sports. If you're a player in Japan, you're in your prime, you sign a contract with Major League Baseball, you're now
for the Yankees.
You play for the Yankees, your name is Masahiro Tanaka. And you have a few years where you're under Major League. Now, that is an international union because they have teams in Toronto and stuff like that. So that's an interesting case. But at least there's still like a physical presence where everything is located, as opposed to all this across the water digital stuff, and it's just way hard to grapple with. So yeah, I guess I'm not sure if we made any points. I just find all that interesting.
I was about to say, the way you're describing the developer situation is not too dissimilar from the music side. There's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah. So, and I'm not sure. I know you've dealt with this a little bit because you were in a serious band, you played gigs, you recorded an album, stuff like that. But like, I would love to hear it from a guy like an agent that's like a 40-year, smoking, drinking. 40 years in the business.
You know what's going to happen? He's just going to be, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But just to break down like a little bit more, because it'd be interesting. I don't know. Maybe we call it Mark Dara again. I don't know. Do we have tidbits?
Yeah, I got tidbits.
Yes.
My drive isn't loading, but I remember them.
You've got memorized tidbits?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't that big.
All right. A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits.
I don't know. Tidbits are pretty small. Yeah. I mean,
little bits.
They're not just bits. They're just like tidbits.
Yeah, little bits.
Yep.
So my drive isn't loading because it's supposed to refresh and it's not refreshing. It's pissing me off.
It does that.
But a new Kickstarter has popped up for 2 spiritual successors for 2 classic PlayStation titles. Now I got to remember what the games were called. I do remember the other whatever. Anyways, Wild Arms and Shadow Hearts were 2 franchises for PlayStation, both for the original PlayStation and PlayStation 2. Wild Arms was a sci-fi western, like a futuristic sci-fi western, and Shadow Hearts was a Lovecraftian, like alternate history, early 1900s, like RPG, like JRPG.
The spiritual successor for Wild Arms is Armed Fantasia.
Armed Fantasia, and then Penny Blood. Penny Blood is the other one.
Okay.
That's the name of the 2 new games that are thrown on Kickstarter from the original developers of those 2 games. They're doing a co-Kickstarter. Of course, very excited because those 2 games are really good, but of course, Kickstarter rewards and stuff like that. Whatever.
Yeah. I hear
there's nothing else to add to it. It's very exciting for me, at least. And then the other one was the Zuck, Mark Zuckerberg, the
Zucker
new VR headset. He said it's coming out in October. We should expect a release in October. They'll probably announce new information next month at their Connect event. But apparently this one will be capable of like actually recognizing like facial features and like body movements and stuff like that. So it'll be more like direct.
It's fine. I don't know.
I don't know how all of these other VR companies haven't made something to compete with the Quest. It should be easy. Well, no, sorry. I'm sure developer.
Okay, well, I'm trying to think, but who?
There's still HTC still around, and I mean, there's Steam. They're rumored to have one. Microsoft could if they wanted to, but they just seem to not care.
They should.
And I think PlayStation is comfortable with what they have.
Yeah, I think so. That's true.
Yeah, but I guess you're right. I was gonna say like who would and why, but yeah,
even Lenovo and HP have their own headsets.
Yeah, and they all have like these like higher end headsets.
Sure. Yeah. So The tech for the Quest 2 is not.
No, it's not.
It's an Android. It's an Android phone.
Yeah,
like
a cell phone.
The way it operates, the way you install APKs, and it is literally an Android phone. So what's the issue here?
Yeah.
Like those parts are easily accessible. Like you know, it's been over 2 years. You can put a very powerful chip in there. I understand costs and everything like that, but whatever.
Yeah, I think part of it is economic stuff because of the pandemic. And that's already squeezing, you know. We had a pandemic and we had a ship get stuck in the Suez Canal or whatever it was. So we had all kinds of problems.
Yeah, that thing, yeah.
Not the Suez Canal, the other canal. The one in the
one that boats go down.
The one that boats go down. You know, remember the ship that got stuck?
It was the Suez Canal.
It was Suez.
Oh, that's it. Suez
you're
Canal?
correct.
I'm thinking the Panama Canal. Not the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal. Anyway.
Those are the Panama Papers. Those different.
No, okay, I got it. God damn it.
Now you're confusing me.
But no, sorry, I was trying to get to the point that, it probably wouldn't that be expensive. It probably wouldn't be that expensive to invest in a low-end headset to compete on Meta.
But have better integration with PC VR games.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
And at first I thought, but why would you do that? Because then, like, are you going to make like multiple VR headsets? Because Meta threw out their other headsets, which is just a slight to the original Rift, because the original Rift was a hell of a VR headset. It was great.
Apparently not.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the Zuck here. Look at the way the guy dresses and his haircuts. Okay, I think he makes cool VR headsets.
Wow.
But sorry. I don't have an opinion on clothes or haircuts.
Yeah, but you definitely did.
I just want to talk on Mark Zuckerberg, which is easy. It's not a difficult thing to do. But you know, if it would not be stunning to see any of these companies try and compete on that level with a cheaper headset that has better integration. I think you're correct. And I think it's a home run market, especially if Steam released something that was right around the same price, if not a little bit more. But the problem right now is how many people have not bought a Quest that want to buy a headset and have not bought a Quest, but would buy one if it's a little more expensive than the Quest 2, but not as expensive as like an Index. And how many people bought a Quest 2 3 years ago, played Beat Saber on a Christmas morning, tossed it like Andy tossing, Woody to the side. And then they're like, oh, well, that's cool. Valve's making another headset. But I already bought a Quest 2, so I'll just keep that one if I ever want to use it. So that's like, I'm sure there's a market for it. I wonder how if the market is stymied by people plebeians that only have one headset instead of two.
They just make a headset, and it's the Steam Deck, but it's a VR headset, and that's it.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But I think my question still stands.
What was the question?
Because the market's already set.
Yeah.
Because not Oculus, damn it, Meta.
No, it's Oculus. It's Oculus.
Here's what you do.
Dominates.
Microsoft releases one, and that has like automatic integration with Game Pass.
Yeah. Okay,
there you go.
But what I'm saying is
PC Game Pass.
What I'm saying is how many people that bought a Quest 2, because a ton of people did, are going to buy a second VR headset.
Only the people that matter.
And how many people are left that haven't bought a VR headset that will buy that one that also haven't bought a Quest 2? I think that's an interesting concept. Because I think people probably think about headsets differently than they think about consoles. People are willing to buy new consoles, new parts for their computer. A headset is like something that is a peripheral that they have, and they're like they're not thinking about upgrading or something like that. It's like I'm fine with the Quest 2 for 10 years. It's like they're not worried about having to upgrade or anything. Partially because with PC and consoles, you have games that are going to push the limits, new graphics, blah, blah, blah. So you have to upgrade, right? As opposed to Quest 2, which everything has been downgraded to work on the Quest 2. So the Quest 2 has not only changed the way games have made, but also changed the market. And are all those people going to say, oh yeah, I'll buy this new headset even though I just bought the Quest 2? Maybe they will. I'd love it because I kind of hate that the Quest 2 dominates the market. I just don't think that would be the mentality. Sorry, that was That was the thought.
It was a good one.
Maybe I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. People are weird.
I like
And so
that.
they still. I don't know if I told the story on the podcast, but it's like, yeah, they still don't even consider console games like. Never mind. Fuck it.
No. What don't they consider console
Yeah, I was
games?
interested.
No,
where
like
you were
because
going.
you were talking about how like they kind of view, like if they got a headset, they kind of view headset as just kind of this like extra thing, not something to take seriously
Not
or
like a
whatnot.
main-
Yeah, they still don't take video games seriously. 'Cause
Okay.
I had a lady come in and she wanted to buy a Switch for herself so she could play Animal Crossing, but she was apprehensive because she was like, well, I don't want to waste my time playing Animal Crossing and everything. And I was like, why? Like I told her, I was like, you still have that viewpoint about video games, but what about movies and books? You're not accomplishing anything doing those either. Like you're still wasting time. But it's not, you're not wasting time, you're enjoying yourself. So it's like why with video games
Is that
is
different?
it still looking
Sure. Yeah.
So
I think that's valid. I think that's a valid. Yeah. Although that may change in the next 10 or 15 years because everybody plays video games.
well,
now,
we're gonna be
so.
dead by then. So
that's true.
That's
Hey,
how it's gonna
the good news
change.
is I won't have to upgrade my card. So yay, GPU is good for the rest of my life.
It's almost been 45 minutes. You might have to do it.
Ah, dang it. All right. Any other tidbits, Richard?
oh man, someone brought in a factory sealed copy of Mega Man 6 on the
Okay.
NES.
Tell me
Yeah.
all about this. This is interesting.
Oh man, this guy pissed me off. Okay, so this dude came in and he's
pissed you
like,
off.
yeah, well, kind of. He came in and he's like, hey, I got this factory sealed Mega Man 6. I was like, cool, let me check it out. And he's like, and already he started doing the goddamn thing people do. You see, it's perfect. It has this. And it's like, okay, dude, shut up. Let me fucking look at this thing. Because people will come in and they'll bring in a stack of stuff and they'll be, I have this, like one thing at a time. And then I have this. And I'm like, no, just fucking put it. I'll look through it. I'll tell you what I give you. That's how this works. Like that's how. Like,
I'm taking notes. I'm going to bring in some games tomorrow. I've got Madden 15. How much you give me?
It's just, he was immediately talking it up because
Sure. Okay.
for them, it's like, if I talk it up, they'll give me more money. It's like, well, no, that's not how this works. So he mentioned he wanted to get it graded, but something fell through. And I was like, all right, sure. Already like half my interest is gone because anytime somebody says graded out of their mouth, I don't want to deal with them. I'm like, get out of here. Get out of my face. I gatekeep. I'm sorry. So I start looking at like how much this thing is selling for, like sold listings and stuff.
Sure.
And I only find like three or four.
Of Mega Man 6.
Yeah, of Mega Man 6 factory sealed. Two of them sold for about $1,800, $1,800. And I was like, okay, cool. One of them sold for about $1,200. Now I start looking at this Mega Man 6, and the corners are exposed because, just 30 plus years of sitting around. The plastic wears, it's old plastic. And so the corners, because they're putting pressure there, they kind of split open and get exposed. But that's kind of a natural thing. So I'm not going to dock them points off of it. But I'm looking through these sold listings and I click on them because I want to look at the photos. I want to compare how good it looks because that's important for collectors, etc. And I clicked on the most recent one that was for $1,800. And as I look at it, I immediately notice it said from Mesa, Arizona. And then we're in Mesa right now. So I was like, okay. I start looking at the photos, and the photos are the exact same condition as the one that's right in front of me.
Interesting.
So I was like, oh, like already I pieced it together. I'm like, this fell through because you sold this thing on eBay and somebody didn't give you the money. Like, because someone can win like a bid or something and they don't have to pay you. Like, so I'm like, okay, so this is what fell through. You didn't get paid for this and now you want to offload it. So you brought it into here. Okay, fine. So I kind of take that into account and I'm like, all right, you know what? Like, I'm going to price it at $1,300. Like the one closer to the one that's not from Mesa, Arizona, the one that's like somewhat recent. And also I don't want to, so that $1,800, this is very confusing.
But you're considering that a bad price? You think that's...
I'm considering that a bad price because it's not real.
Because it's some guy that couldn't settle to that price and is now trying to offload it at a lesser price.
Because unfortunately, eBay still considers it a completed sale. So that's how things get kind of funky.
Badass detective work, I got to tell you.
If you care enough, yeah. Thanks. But so I was just kind of like, okay, well, I'll do it for $1,300 since this listing's fake, and then this one's the most recent. And then considering the condition and all that, I want to I could probably sell it or if someone cared enough, but also, I do consider conditions and stuff like that. Anyways, so I'm like, I'll tell you what, man, I'll give you $700 for it. Like, it's a little more than half of what I'm gonna sell for. I'm gonna sell for $1,300. I was being very transparent about what I was gonna do. And he's like, yeah, all right, sure, man, $700. That's great, fine. And I was like, okay, cool. So I give him the $700, and he goes before he leaves, you could probably get $1,800 for that. And I was like, yeah, maybe, man. And then he just like, all right, well, I'll see you later. And he just leaves. And I'm like, you fucking asshole. And so I now have this Mega Man 6. I haven't put it out or anything because it's just something that expensive. 90% of the people who come in, they just want to buy a simple game. They're not looking to drop $2,000 just, off the cuff. And so I have it in the back, and I'm just I'm debating on if I want to give it to the owner so he could put it on eBay and do something with it. I tell my regulars, who are actual collectors, I tell them just because sometimes they're looking for it or they'll know somebody who's looking for it. But yeah, I had that interaction. It's cool that I have the thing now, but man, that guy was just like, man, you're just a dude who's...
That's fascinating. Yeah. That's really interesting. I'd be so bad at that job. I'd be like, I'll give you $50. I gotta know anything.
Sometimes
I'll give you $60 because that's all games cost, right? All games are $60. That'd be me. I try to give the for what things cost. I try to at least give people half because it's like that's fair to me. That's fair to you. Like, sure,
you're gonna get half. I'm not gonna sell for any more or less. I'm going to make my money back and make 50% more, sure, but it's like half you, half me. But there are some times where it's just this person brought in their collection, and I wasn't there at the time. I had the day off, but my coworkers called me, and they were like, hey, this guy has some stuff. And I was like, okay. And they start naming these things, and I'm like, $500 game. That's a $1,000 game. That's he has a ton of stuff. Like, we need your help. Fine. Day off, I go down there for like an hour or two, and he has one of the rarest games, not in existence, but for one of the consoles, TurboGrafx. It's a game called Magical Chase, and it's the rarest because there's not really a price on it right now. Like he had the game and he had the manual for it, and the last one that ever sold, I think, was around like $5,000. And
wow,
with the condition that the manual and the game was in, I've asked a lot of regulars and a lot of like experts that have come into the store, been doing this for a while. I'm thinking I could probably get $7,000 for it, and they've all been, yeah, probably more.
So you consult with people, and then you set the market based on multiple.
I just get opinions. Like I do have my like,
but you are sort of like setting a market because you're deciding. Well, how much money is this game going to be worth? Whatever.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose so. But I'm setting a local market, not
a huge national.
Yeah, but I also kind of have that. Yeah, I have the discussion with the somewhat, I'll call it quote unquote experts because it's, I care about their opinion to an extent too. But anyways, yeah. So they had all this stuff just throughout the years, and they weren't even like a collector playing games. They just had this stuff.
Oh man, one of those people.
Yeah,
like,
but
know what it is.
But they not necessarily didn't know what it is, but they kept meticulous care of it to an extent. They had all the manuals, they had all the discs or whatever, but they didn't have the boxes. It sucks, but it's what it is. We calculated all the stuff, and it was like almost like $20,000 in profit, maybe more. A lot. Yes, it's a lot. And I'm worried because it's like, that's a lot of money I have to give. And of course, the owner is going to see how much money I give. So I don't want to like make it too much or make it too low. And I don't know if this person's going to, because it was my day off, I don't know if this person's going to argue with me or with us how much money to give. And I told my coworkers, I was like, hey, tell him we'll offer him $6,500 just to start. And then if he comes back and wants, we'll negotiate up to ever. And then later on that day, they contact me. They're like, yeah, he took the 6,500. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's, you just never know. Like they just 6,500 because we were expecting a like push vendor. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So just one of those games is just like, okay, well, we paid that person off and the rest is just pure profit. But it's not like we were trying to rip that person off or anything. It was just kind of just like, oh,
starting offer.
Yeah.
And you just accept it.
Yeah. This didn't go how we, were expecting, but it's whatever. There's a lot of
negotiations will show it.
Right. Yeah. There's lots of stuff that goes on. There's just, I think actually I got to, check it when I get back to work tomorrow, but I think we just sold another game for like $1,000 on eBay.
Wow.
It's a Pokemon game. Well, kind of, not really, but whatever.
All that and NCAA 10 remains.
I have. Dude, You've
got one client that matters, and he's got NCAA 10.
No, I do have feelers out.
You've got feelers out?
Yes.
Okay, this is good. This is a new segment of the podcast.
I have several people who frequently come to my store from stuff from other places, and I have like, look, I'm looking for NCAA football 10. Come get it. Come get it. And they're like, give it to me. And they're like, okay, we'll keep an eye out. I'm like, great, thank you. So it's coming. It's out
there somewhere,
but we don't know when, because it's strange. It's like 10 doesn't even exist. Like I see 11s all over. I have to see Tim Tebow's face all the goddamn time.
That's unfortunate. It's annoying.
Yeah. And then like 12 is out there, 13 out there. Even I haven't seen 14 a lot recently. I'm like 10. It's like it doesn't exist. Actually, we did get a PS3 one the other day.
Yeah, you told me about that.
But I was like, look for
NCAA 10. Sorry, go ahead. Connor.
No, go ahead.
It has something I really like on it because Michael Crabtree is the cover. He played for Texas Tech, and in that season. Was Texas Tech's maybe greatest.
You hate Longhorns, not Tech.
I know. Well, I don't like Texas Tech either, but the Longhorns are like I really dislike
right, because the Sooners and whatnot.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. And well, I mean, you say it like that, but this is like, if Oklahoma loses to Texas, I am despondent.
I don't get it, but I get it. Especially weird because it's like Oklahoma, but you usually rep New York, and it's weird. But, I do know it varies differently
ESPN,
from like...
It's not crazy. It's sports, okay? No, but so Texas Tech had a couple years where they were phenomenal. They were national championship contenders. They were phenomenal. But that year, one of the we'll play it after the podcast. Connor, maybe you can throw it in the audio in the end. One of the greatest calls of all time. Texas Tech is playing Texas, right? Texas is undefeated. They look like they're going to go to the college football championship. Back then BCS national championship game. Michael Crabtree, on one of the final plays, catches a pass from Graham Harrell, edge of the sideline, and the cornerback goes to tackle him, but Michael Crabtree spins, and on the very last play, it's a 35-yard touchdown. And it is so amazing because Colt McCoy was the starting quarterback for Texas, and I hated Colt McCoy because he played at Texas for like 4 years, and Oklahoma and Texas, they were titans, and the rivalry, that was one of the heights of the rivalry, was Sam Bradford, Landry Jones, Colt fucking McCoy, right? And they were going back and forth, and it showed Colt McCoy's face, and he was depressed, and it made me so happy. So every time I see that NCAA 10 box, all I hear is Brent Musburger, touchdown, Red Raiders, and Texas loses. And even though Texas beat Oklahoma that year, I'm just like, but you guys didn't get it in the end, so fuck you. And that's one of the reasons that I like NCAA 10 so much. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Richard.
Is there anything random you want to talk about, Connor? You want to talk
yes.
Talk about a song?
Richard, I am going to bring in a game.
Okay. $5.
That might be a bit high. I'm going to constantly tuck it down because I am going to bring in a not factory sealed, a used, very used copy of the 2007 video game movie tie-in of Bale.
Oh, okay, all right.
For the PC.
Shit! God damn it! He got me again. Man,
what we should do is we should have Connor come in. You set up one of your employees. Connor come in super confident, slamming on the table, be like, "I'm starting at a K and I'm not moving."
Start at 10 grand,
and you can't go off. They come up to you, it's like, "This guy wants a K," and you're like, "It's 2007 Beowulf. take it for a K.
It's priceless.
Dead serious.
You know how much we can get for this graded?
They're like, Richard, it's not even, it's a cent on. No, shut up.
I know what I'm doing.
Who runs the store? You or me?
Who run Potter Town?
Okay.
I was somewhat hoping you were going to say Peter Jackson King Kong on 360 because that game actually is expensive. It's like it's like $45. Yeah.
No, a trash game from a trash movie.
All right.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. Check out Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse, where you can get lots of goodies. And I think we have a new segment for the podcast now.
I'm gonna have nightmares about Beowulf.
We're gonna have to do like some kind of, I don't know, like some kind of like jazz and make it like a gangster thing, like dun, 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 dun.
Like a noir, like
a noir. Like this guy, he comes in. I says to him, I want this much money for a game.
Just gonna bring in the
hey, Mac, you know.
Just gonna bring in the West Side Story.
That's what we do. We'll have a new segment. See you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.